So today, I want to talk about how to look younger instantly. Okay, this is what you do. Very, very important. Start to find some new friends that are a lot older than you. And just start hanging out with them, and you're going to look a lot younger. But in all seriousness, there's really two viewpoints to look at when trying to, youthful. The outside-in approach versus the inside-out approach. So many people are focused on trying to look younger from the outside in. They're using all sorts of facial creams and different things that are putting in your face too. Like anti-wrinkle things and creams and lotions. And all sorts of things, not to mention surgery and those things as well. But what about from the inside out? What are some things you can do to change your youthful appearance from the inside? Well, let's start right at the most important thing. And that would be something called age-advanced glycation. End products. That is a combination of a sugar and a protein that is bonded and stuck together. These get stuck in the body and they accumulate, and they make you look older. And they create all sorts of chronic inflammation and chronic disease. So if you were to take, I don't know, barbecued ribs, for example, you have sugar sauce on these ribs, and they're heated. So heat tends to cause this chemical reaction to occur. And so there's a lot of different meals that we cook, like meatloaf, for example. And it can even be proteins and junk food. Right, that's just processed. It's highly heated, but it can also be the amount of sugar that you're eating that goes into your own bloodstream. And you have heat inside your body, and it starts to interact with your own proteins. Okay, you have something in your blood cells that called hemoglobin. There's this thing called A1C. What is that? That is the measurement of how much glycated protein that you have. And it gives you a number. So you can kind of look at on a scale from good to bad. And you can kind of from that determine your blood sugars over a period of 3 months. These ages are behind a lot of problems with just looking old. Okay, but you also have something else that's related. ALI. What is that? That stands for advanced lipoxidation and products. Okay? That is where you have fat that gets bound to glucose or sugar. So ages are our sugar and protein that get stuck. ALIs are sugar and fat that get stuck. Same thing. It creates chronic inflammation disease and it accumulates. And it makes you look older because think about it, you have various proteins in your body. You have a lot of different proteins. I mean, you have proteins in your tendons, your ligaments. You have protein in your blood, but you also have fat membranes too. And then your nervous system and your endocrine system, your brain, and even every cell in your body has a cell membrane made out of fat. Let's say you ate some ice cream, right? Fat with sugar heated, deadly for this process of binding, the sugar with this fat. You have also, French fries, right? Because you have high heats with the starch, which is a carb which can turn into sugar really fast. And then the fat, the oil that they cook with, then you have the cereals and the chips, the donuts, etc. etc. Now when we talk about, this ALI, the one that affects the lipids, if we look at just saturated fats and unsaturated fats like seed oils, the seed oils are much worse than the saturated fats because they're more of an unstable fat. And so, if you want to look young, you better avoid those unsaturated fats because they're gonna make you look old really quick. And when I use the word oxidation, talking about the concept of, like, certain parts of your body, just, like, rusting out. Creating what's called free radical damage, which is another thing that's a little confusing. I think the best way to understand that is think about, if you had a plate that's spinning on your finger right now around a circle, and it had different weights on it. And if you took one of the weights off, it would be out of balance. Right, and it would no longer balance because it's not paired anymore. It starts to becoming very radical, and it starts to damage things. Too much oxidation and not enough protection. Like antioxidants. You have this thing called oxidative stress. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because this relates directly to your aging. If you could just balance this thing out back and bring up your antioxidant levels, you can counter all the oxidation in the free radical damage to a major level. Now, as you know, other things also oxidize you as well. Smoking, drinking, pollution, taking drugs, things like that. But what's interesting about this, you always hear someone say, well, know of my grandfather. He smoked like a fiend, and he died at 100 years old. How do you explain that? Well, if you take a look at certain countries where people live a long time, Sardinia, for example, these people that live in the mountains live a lot longer than people that live at the sea level. Okay, and there's an interesting article on this talking about men. Because the men that lived on the mountaintop in Sardinia smoke like a fiend. So wait a second, I thought smoking was bad for you. How could this possibly be? They should be dead by the time they're 60 or 70. How are they living past 100 years old? Well, yes, they do smoke, but they're also consuming a lot of antioxidants. And some of the antioxidants they're eating are actually in the cheese that they eat. Because their goats and their sheep consume grass in the higher altitudes, which have much higher antioxidant levels. And those transfer into the milk, which goes into the cheese, which goes into these people that smoke. Not to mention all the other antioxidants that they eat and also the lifestyle. They're probably not doing a lot of ultra-processed junk foods. So you really need to look at the whole picture, okay? If you're consuming junk foods, yet at the same time, you're doing other things that are countering that, then that could explain why you might be surviving a lot longer. I live in a certain area where there's a lot of people who eat junk food. But even though they seem to be eating a lot of junk food, a lot of them are farmers, and they're outside and they're working until dark. Right? You have all this physical activity that is so protective against everything. It's probably countering all the bad effects from the chewing tobacco and the smoking and all the junk food. If you have enough antioxidants to the oxidation, then you're going to be in better shape. How can we build up our antioxidant levels? Well, we can eat animals that have eaten grass or even a diversified group of plants versus animals have just lived on grains, or we're in a feedlot, right? They're not going to have near the phytonutrients. And those phytonutrients are more protective against things. In fact, on my farm, I sent my beef into the study, and the researcher contacted me after 6 months and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Let me send you the report." So I'll put the page up right now. But you can see in this report the level of antioxidants compared to other farms, right? So my cattle not only get a lot of exercise, because there's nothing flat. There's just mountains up and down, and there's not even a lot of grass. There's just a lot of different weeds and different plants and different herbs, which obviously is contributed to these phytonutrients. And so when you go to, like, Europe, France and Italy, we have some cheese where these goats and sheep that have lived on different types of grasses and higher altitudes, I think they're more protective. But another viewpoint could be this. These anti-nutrients can create an epigenetic effect, just like exercise does right on our bodies. When you exercise, you actually damage your body. That then causes an adaptation, and you become stronger. The same thing with cold therapy, or heat therapy, or fasting. Well, what about some of these, plant-based chemicals? Right. It could be doing the same thing. We don't know yet, but with time, I think we'll figure this out if we want to build up our own antioxidants. And I'm talking about endogenous. That means from within our body makes these antioxidants. There's various ways we can do that, okay? Now, what is autophagy? Autophagy is a condition where your body starts to recycle damaged cells and damage things within cells to repurpose them for new cells. And autophagy can also help you look younger as well. Now, if we look on the posing scale of that frequent eating a lot of sugar, eating a lot of grains, Eating a lot of ultra-processed foods will stop autophagy. Now, what do I mean by ultra-processed foods? Well, if we just take a look at the definition of the word processed, what does that mean? It means to change something, to alter something, to modify something, as in modified food starch. Right. And if we add this other word before it, called ultra, we're talking about extreme change, okay? And making it so dead. Those are the foods that are on the bottom level, that aren't really even foods. They're chemicals, and the more of those foods you eat, the older you're going to look, the more unhealthier you're going to look. Those things are designed to sit on the shelf for a long time. And if you think about it, even the bugs won't eat them. The other thing about creating a useful appearance is to make sure that your liver is working, especially with this thing called bile. Bile is made by your liver, and it helps you extract fat-soluble nutrients from the food that you eat. So what depletes bile going on a low-fat diet? This is why if you're on a low-fat diet, your skin, your hair dries out. It doesn't look as healthy. There's a diet out there. It's called Ideal Protein, and they use soy protein isolates, which is like this modified soybean. Right. And, like, a powder. And they use other ingredients that are really, really cheap. So it's kind of like a low-fat version of keto because it's low-carb. I have noticed in practice that when people do this diet, they lose weight, but they start to look kind of older, they look dried out. Also, if we look at the type of fat that you should be eating, the saturated fats are very stable, the unsaturated fats are very unstable. And this is why when you buy these seed oils at the store, and they're sitting out, what's keeping them from going rancid? They're already rancid, so when you consume them in salad dressings, mayonnaise, basically it's in most of the foods in the grocery store. So you really have to start reading the labels. And if it says soy oil, canola or cottonseed oil or safflower oil or sunflower seed oil, I would avoid those. And on your salad, I would put real extra virgin olive oil, maybe some vinaigrette. Now, I do want to bring up this point on cholesterol. Cholesterol has a purpose, and the purpose of cholesterol is to help make hormones. Also, the cholesterol is needed to make cell membranes. So when someone is either on a statin drug which blocks cholesterol, or they're on a low saturated fat diet because they've been told they have to replace their saturated fats with the unsaturated fats, which is probably the biggest mistake in history because it's created more problems, especially obesity, than anything else. If you take a look at the graph of obesity over time, sugar actually has gone down. But the only thing that hasn't gone down is the seed oils. It keeps going higher and higher and higher. And so another good fat is the omega-3. Fats from fish oils could be sardines, salmon. Cod liver oil is a really good one that I like because it not only has the omega-3, it has the vitamin D and the vitamin A. Vitamin A is really, really important. Vitamin A supports all of your skin, both externally and also inside your body. One of the best sources of vitamin A is from egg yolk. Now, you can also get an omega-3, or at least a precursor. It's called ALA, from walnuts. Okay, but I would recommend getting the sprouted walnuts or just buy walnuts. Soak them in water overnight, then dry them out in the oven for a little bit and then consume them. That way, you don't have any of the things that can create digestive issues. And then you get the sun, okay? The sun can make you look older, especially if you allow the skin to burn. If you are in the sun, and you just get a slight tan, and you don't overdo it, it's going to be okay. And you're not going to actually age the skin. What happens when you're out in the sun as well, and we need sun, is that we also get, over 50% of the rays are infrared. Infrared is very, very therapeutic to your skin. Infrared can penetrate like 2 inches inside the body, and it goes in the body, and it can help increase melatonin. And it's not just for sleep. It's also a very powerful antioxidant. So when you're exposing your skin to sun, okay? And you don't overdo it, it's a healthy thing. But some people can overdo it. I know as a teenager I overdid it. Let myself get burned so many times. Well, that's not healthy, that can really age your skin anyway. Right. Now, you know the secret to looking youthful and younger. So now, your next step is to go out and apply what I just said.